The Chinese may be renowned for their negotiation skills, but this year's climate summit in Copenhagen hasn't proved very productive. Key states have reached what they call a meaningful agreement, but many have said the progress made is simply not good enough. It's widely thought the US and China hold the key to striking a binding agreement in the future, yet they also pose two major obstacles. One is Washington's refusal to propose deeper cuts in greenhouse gas emissions, and second is China's refusal to any kind of international monitoring of its emission levels. Many of the world's developed countries have remained skeptical over China actually doing what it says it will do when it comes to reducing emission. They claim that without proper measurement, reporting and verification, they won't be able to know for certain if China is telling the truth about its reduction. The message from China's climate policy envoy, Xie Zhenhua, ahead of the conference was simply trust us. But Professor of Environmental Law Zhou Ke from Brigham University admits gaining that trust from the international community has proved difficult.
In any global issues, Western countries have never stopped blaming China. When it comes to climate change, no matter how well China does, the West won't be satisfied. Even if it does very well, they'll still say they don't believe the figures.
The looming clouds of distrust from the international community were clearly visible throughout the 10-day conference in Copenhagen. But Professor Zhou questioned the other side in the debate, doubting whether Western countries have also lived up to their promises.
Have Western countries achieved their emission targets according to the Kyoto Protocol? If they haven't, and they're still criticizing China, then it's very hypocritical. It's the same if the Chinese meet their emission reduction targets, but Western countries don't provide corresponding financial and technical help, which is also unfair.
China has set a goal to reduce its carbon intensity by 40 to 45% by 2020. The U.S. says it believes that this target is too low, and a top American official called it disappointing the day it was announced. But Professor Zhou and others disagree, saying that China's goal is ambitious.
The target of 40 to 50% is a little bit too high for China. China is facing more pressure than other countries because coal is a main energy resource in China. If China wants to start using new green energy, it needs to spend more money to develop technology. But China is weaker than the developed countries in terms of economic power.
Professor Zhou also emphasized that if China doesn't get support from developed countries, it will face difficulties in reaching its emissions target. The U.S. says it's ready to give billions of dollars to developing countries most vulnerable to a changing climate, including China. But it's thought Congress would only sign off on a deal if China allows its emission commitments be opened up to public scrutiny, and that currently seems a long way off. President Obama hinted on Friday that China was to blame for the lack of a substantial deal, when he condemned the insistence of some countries to look backwards to previous environmental agreements. Those comments show the issue of trust between the two sides certainly won't be solved overnight. But whether or not the world believes China could become a side issue to the ultimate aim, and that's for China, the world's biggest carbon emitter, to play a central role in global efforts to reduce the threat of global warming. Professor Zhou believes that China is on track to achieve its emissions target.
Due to China's energy-saving policies and its emission reductions over the past years, the country has produced very good results. China has already saved 600 million tons of coal. That's the equivalent of saving 1.5 billion tons of carbon emissions, or about 30% of the total. If China continues on this path, it can definitely reach its emission target.
And only time will tell if China and the rest can realize that goal. Sylvia Gunawan, BON.